Welcome to the Path of Passion podcast, the podcast where we meet people who are carving out their own path in life. I'm your host, Tyler, and this is my incredible co host.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
And today we're interviewing Chad. Now, I've known Chad for about 10 years. We originally met back at the MIT Boston Spin Jam, which Chad helped found. And so that is basically people gathering to play with juggling props, hoops, or fire props, which are basically the tools Hawaiian spinners spin during their fire dance. Or Chad's making a face. Maybe he has a better explanation than I do.
Don't know if I'd go there. A lot of what's currently done is the Maori from New Zealand. Kind of started it, but it's so different now than how it was then. But poi started in New Zealand, not Hawaii.
So how would you describe fire spinning? Because I think there's a lot of people in general who have no idea what that is.
Oh, there's a couple of people who've done a lot of like really deep dive research. I would loosely call what we do spinning arts. I've always used that term. I like it. People also use flow arts, some other stuff. But any object manipulation where you're trying to do it with patterns, often with dance and physical movement with the object. And then, people think, well, the fire dancing went way back. It really didn't. Like refined gasoline was around the turn of the beginning of the 1900s. So all of the stuff before that didn't have any fire on it because there wasn't the possibility of that. So like the Maori poi spinning, which if you ever get a chance to look, it looks very different than modern poi spinning. In that part of the world, it's one of the few places that percussion instruments weren't naturally developed as part of just the culture developing. And they actually used poi, very small ones, and they would hit them on their body and spin and hit. It would make a beat sound. It was also used as a weapon. It was used as a cooking instrument. Like poi is actually a root, and they would put it in a little basket with a rope and they would pulverize it on a rock. And the name actually comes from that originally. So how crazy is that? But now we're way down that path.
No, this is really cool. I'm learning a ton about like the history of the spinning arts that I do.
Hawaiian fire dancing is a very specific thing, and it actually really hasn't migrated to the rest of the spinning arts world. It's still kind of stayed as a Hawaiian thing. Where poi came over like to the rest of the world. A lot of it was really focused in the US for a while, and it very quickly developed into a much bigger art, very different. A lot of moves were created. There's a fascinating study of the spinning arts as being one of the very first art forms that grew dramatically from almost nothing to huge because of the internet, purely because of the internet. Because in 2004, I remember when the moves that we teach in beginner classes now were like cutting edge. And the only way that you learned about them was either Home of Poi had these animated GIFs that you could learn the butterfly with, and it was literally that. Or Tribe, when Tribe came out, people started video sharing there. And you'd like one person would put up a new thing they did, and then somebody in Japan that night would take it and do something with it and put that up. And then all of a sudden, all these things and people all around the world were progressing this art just exponentially. I don't think there's been another art form that's gone from like, okay, there was poi spinning and a little bit of staff to now there's multiple types of objects that are used in the flow arts and the spinning arts that all have very extensive repertoires of moves and divisions of moves and all this kind of stuff. That's all happened in 20 years. It's all because of the internet. So I think that's fascinating. I think that is super cool. But
yeah, it's like, cause I do like I as one of my hobbies, I do like house dance, and a lot of the house dance dates back to a club called the Warehouse in Chicago, which is where it comes from, and that is kind of like goes back to the the fall of disco, and it's like a lot of traditional dance styles are quite old, but it's really, I never knew that like that's how recent spinning arts are. And like I got exposed to it in 2010 just because people were doing it on MIT's campus. So that's really like, that's actually awesome. I didn't know it was such a young art form.
Yeah, it very much is. I went to the first spinning arts kind of meetup in the US, was the very first fire drums. And that happened at the end of 2003. and there was 60 of us. And I mean, there were somebody from Canada, from, they were from all over. And that was kind of like, that was the nexus of the very first meetup in the US. It was just like 60 people. Like Fire Drums now is 500, 600 people.
Damn.
There's so much more now, that it's so huge now. Let me close that window.
Yeah, sounds good.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that is a really neat part of this. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever. I was a little involved back then. Maybe a
Well,
little.
so out of curiosity, taking this a bit back to you. So you are a serial entrepreneur. You've started a lot of different things.
Sure.
One of the things you started was Wildfire, which I haven't been to. Tyler has been to. You want to talk a bit more about your experience?
So I'm probably gonna butcher up the explanation of what Wildfire is, like I did with spinning arts. But Wildfire is everyone gathers up in Connecticut. I think it's Connecticut. It's campground. Okay. And basically people come up to do spinning arts during the day. There's a lot of sessions, and everyone has a role. So if you're either a teacher, or like myself, I was coming to learn, so I'd be in the kitchen cooking or cleaning. So it's a very communal space to go learning. And then at night they on the campground they'll have areas where you can actually light your props on fire and practice then with fire. So I don't know if that was a
That's great.
better. Okay. I didn't want to be like it's like Burning Man, but not.
Oh, now it's really interesting you say that, because so after I went to the first Fire Drums, I came back to the East Coast and started Wildfire, and there was only Fire Drums and Wildfire. Fire Drums came out of the very much the Burning Man community. It was burners that put it together. And there was, like, when you got there was a welcome home, just like you meet at the greeter gate at Burning Man. And there was that kind of like, hey, we're spinning rocks on ropes and sticks and stuff. Like, don't take it too seriously. At the same time, like, I know this thing, let me show you. What do you know? Okay, let me do this. And that kind of sense of community, I often kind of, when I think it's good, the thing I love about some of the meetups and some of the festivals out there, it's like you come for maybe the fire or the spinning and that kind of stuff. You stay for the community. And
Yeah.
and if it's done right, if it's really done where there's a culture built in these events, that's like, I don't care where you're from. I don't care if you're a doctor or you live on a park bench. You came here to spin something. Hey, let's spin something. This is just fun. You can learn and grow as a person and just have a good time. Like, welcome to this. Those are the ones that, like, oh, it's just nice being here. And Wildfire was started, there's a lot of very specific cultural things we did, like the eating together, like the participatory. Everybody participates. I ran the event for 16 events. I paid for my ticket and I volunteered time. Like, I was running the thing. Everybody does. All the teachers consider their teaching time volunteering, the kitchen, the grounds. So we all make it happen, which made it a very communal. Everybody owned it in some way because you made it happen. We could have done it differently, but like, no. This is going to be about community as much as it's about spinning. So those choices were very specific. We all eat together. Like that whole thing, that was huge. But
yeah, and I remember not just like everyone participating. I also remember when we showed up, like I remember people were like, here's chocolate baking cookies, welcome home. They got like hugs, and it was like very warm, and it like you got there and all of a sudden you were already immersed in it. It wasn't like, oh, let me set up my tent. It was like, no, stuff's going down, come enjoy it with us. You can set up your tent later. Everyone's going to do it later.
Yep. There was a lot of choices at the organizational level that may felt very organic when they were implemented. They were very purposeful and long, like, conversations, or a lot of thought went into a lot of that stuff to try to make those environments. Like, you can't force anybody to do anything, but you can create the culture and opportunity for all that stuff to be what it's about. And there a lot went into it to make that. And I love to hear that was your experience. That just makes me
it's I mean, I was gonna go this year, but then with the pandemic and everything, and I was like, oh man. But I mean, in the future, I miss it. I want to go back so badly.
It's lovely. It's a beautiful place. I have a lot of one of the ideas that came out of our wrap-up meetings was like a, what do they call it? An appreciation wall. I think they used a different word for it, but they put little envelopes up and a bunch of little pieces of paper that you could write people notes and put them in the envelopes. Dude, when things aren't going well or something, I have a stack of envelopes on my desk that I go to those. Those
That's
are,
awesome.
ooh, they're good stuff, and it's just lovely. The things people say, like, they were nervous to be there, and you were the person that they like. It wasn't about like who they were, who I was. It was like, oh, what are you learning? What are you working on? Hey, want to work on it together? I'm gonna go practice over there. Want to come over to the lake with me? We'll just spin. We ain't even got to talk. Want to? And they're like, yeah. I suddenly feel okay, and I want to go learn. Yeah,
And
and
I met so many people that way, right? It was like, I just like what you're doing, and everyone's in that communal environment. So it's like, well, let me show you. And next thing you know, we're hanging out together.
absolutely, that's what it's about. If it's, into my opinion, if it's done well, if it's right, that's what I wanted to build, and I think we did for a very long time, and it's absolutely still there. Yeah.
So something that I'm really curious about. So both Tyler and I lived in a communal living group for 2 years. And having lived in it, I know how hard it can be to craft a community that has a majority positive takeaways rather than necessarily like a lot more conflicting takeaways. So, what was your guys' process, you and the other founders, the process of cultivating the community that you guys did?
I give this recommendation to every festival. Like, I still work with some of the other people who run festivals, because it's all transitioned to one to new people multiple times now through generations. The most important thing you can do, period, organization wise or festival wise, is pick your mission. And I know most people, oh, mission statement, thing in the drawer that you pull out every once in a while at the end of the year and like, oh, look, our mission. No, your mission statement should be something that your most important decisions that you're going to make, you look at the mission and go, does this help the mission or does it not? Because everybody in the room is going to have a different opinion about how they should run things and what we should be doing and what we should focus on. But if you have a very clear, these are the two, pick no more than three things. Three is already a lot. I would say two max. Your focus is, for us, like Wildfire, for example, spread the spinning arts and build community between artists. And the wording is super important. Spread the spinning arts doesn't mean train the best artist in the world. And people were like, why don't we have even higher in art? Why don't we bring people from Europe or something? We're like, well, we'd rather take that money and give scholarship tickets to people that couldn't afford to come otherwise, because our goal is to spread the arts. Like, Wildfire got a little reputation of being more beginner or intermediate oriented. And some people in the rest part of the country kind of look down on that. And we were all like, awesome. Like, we're the place where we're doing this 4 times a year at our max. And more people were trained at Wildfire than any other event in the world, like by a lot, up until maybe recently. But we were just doing it. So pick your mission. Pick your mission. Don't let it sit in a drawer. Make it be the thing that when you're in meetings, and not just in meetings, but when you're talking online, there needs to be some leader. And the difference between leadership and management is huge. You need a leader who is out there cheerleading, is out there reinforcing the mission. Hey, we're going to do lunch again, or we're coming up with a menu, and we love to eat together because eating together is community together. And they just say that over and over and over and over again. That is how you drive the culture, how you actually can, because every event will have a culture, whether you implement it or not. Get ahead of that, pick a couple of key things and somebody or multiple people over. And I mean, it's almost obnoxious. You're talking about it so much, but you do. And you won't, somebody will come in, well, I think da-da-da-da. Let's discuss it. Sure. Does it meet our mission? Yes. Hey, you're right. Let's get on that. Or no, it doesn't. And you can see how this is our focus. I'm sorry. This is just not what we're going to work on. It helps a ton.
Yeah, like the act of making it a lot easier to drive alignment. And you were saying, like, with repeating the same phrases over and over again of like, this is our mission, this is our goal. especially in an environment where people change, it's really important to drive home that this is the culture that we're aiming for. And within that goal, within that mission, there can be a variety of interpretations of what that means. And then that's where it comes down to a discussion about like, does this really align with our mission? But yeah, I think what you say makes a lot of sense. Like it's really core to driving at least a semi-consistent culture, if not a consistent sense of culture.
I don't think without it you can have a cohesive culture. I think it is the backbone, it is the fundamental. You will always have culture, but if you want to drive to a certain thing, you also have to be willing to say no. And that's something new people and young entrepreneurs and leaders have a really hard time doing. But like, we'd love to have everybody here, but this is what we're doing. And if you want to do this, this isn't the right place. I'm sorry, but not sorry. Like, if we saw no attendance, hey, maybe we got the wrong mission. We're not filling a need that's out there. But if we're selling out tickets in 2 hours, then we're doing what we're doing great. And hey, we'll even help you start something else if you want. But you got to be able to say no. And that was hard for us. I think we actually made some mistakes in the beginning of not saying no, and it caused conflict. It did. Like really standing up and just being like, I'm sorry, no. Like, love you, want you to be here. If you want to come do what we're doing here, love it. If you want to go do this, we want to support you, but it's not what we're doing. Now, I've seen that. I'd say the best companies I've worked at had extremely strong cultures, and they were different. One, I worked at a very high-end consulting company, and they were one of those like, you bring your A game every day, because if you don't, you won't be here in 3 months. Like, and that's just how it was, and that was the culture, and it was awesome. Like, some of the most brilliant people I've ever worked with in my life were at this company. But you knew going in that's the way it was, and you probably weren't going to be there more than like 2 or 3 years because it was a burnout kind of like you went hard, really hard. But it was awesome. But then there's other companies have more family-oriented culture. That's fine, not a problem. Just pick what that is. Make sure it's in your mission about here, or there's what mission, strategy, goals. There's a whole pyramid of it. Pick your mission. And when you come to strategy, make sure if you're more family oriented, like you're a consulting company that doesn't travel a lot. That's way down the levels, but that means somewhere up in the levels, you're really focusing on people having a work-life balance with a family. Awesome. Love it. Just make sure that is part of your focus. That is, you're not trying to be everything to everybody because you'll fail. It doesn't work. That's my
I like how no, I think it's like, it's because especially when a lot of the things you're talking about, like when you're like deciding a culture for a company or the culture for an event like Wildfire, right? You're building something from the ground up with a lot of different possibilities and using that as like a guiding light, like a North Star, by saying like, listen, this decision making process isn't personal. It's just we're going back to these core values, and
Yes.
it lets you. It's nice because it lets you say no in a way that's not confrontational. It's just like it's not you. You can take those ideas to a different location, or and we're not kicking you out for those ideas. We're just saying bring ideas that are more focused to this. But I also like it because then when new people come in with their own ideas, even if they're in something you considered, you can go back and say like, does this go at our core values? And if it does, it gives you also a pathway to grow. And I think that's really interesting.
When everybody really understands what the core values are, the ideas that start to get generated are much more focused towards that. So you do get these new things that are like the appreciation wall. That was a wonderful one. Like that's community, that's spreading the arts in some ways. Like you get connections with these people. But it was like, wow, yeah, that's great. That's perfect. Thank you for offering that idea as it aligns with our mission and that it works. But you're also right. You can actually, I mean, as a leader, you'll always be a bad guy to some people, but it's a little bit of a cop out, but like you said, it's also true. You get to say, this is our mission. And if you're not aligning with it, it ain't about me. this is the whole community. We're doing this for the community. We're doing this for the organization, whatever. No, because it doesn't align with this mission.
Do you think these lessons about how to set a mission, the importance of it, and how this creates culture, do you think you could have learned and especially internalized it without having just gone through it yourself?
That's a really yeah.
So one of my first jobs out of undergrad was implementing a process, an engineering process system. It was basically, the shop floor, crazy manufacturing shop floors, big, huge Fortune 500 companies sometimes, big engineering departments, the wonderful communication and stuff that happens between those two, and managing that, products going out the door, and which revision were they on, and red line, all that crazy systems. We would come up with beautiful solutions. I mean, some of the stuff that I implemented was just, I mean, guys, this is going to make your everything so much better, and this, that, and the other. And they failed miserably. Terribly. Like we'd call them in 6 months, like, yeah, nobody's using it. Nah, scrap. We hate it. We spent too much money on it. Like, what are you talking about? This is perfect. We analyzed everything. It's great. And it was about culture. It had nothing to do with the system. It's like people won't change. The number one reason things get adopted or not, and it's been studied, there's like MBA program study stuff on this, is whether or not the people involved believe there is a need for change. If they don't fundamentally think that there is a need for change, shut up, walk away, quit, don't do anything else, because you are wasting everybody's time and money, period. And it's funny because this actually applies to like relationships and friendships. It's human nature. And that's the interesting part, like culture and the way companies run on not the operations, some on the management level, but in the leadership side, it's all about people. It's how people interact with each other, and how different people are, and how like people come from very different backgrounds and all this kind of stuff. And like you start as an engineer, I would rather the very structured and project management and world over here, but that in and of itself will never make a successful company. You have to like understand, get involved, work through all this other stuff to be a successful organization. And I have many entrepreneur friends that are like, I don't want to manage anyone ever again. That's why I started my own company. And they like people, they just don't want to do there's so much more involved when you have to think about like, where is this person coming from? Like, what was their background? What's is there a gender or ethnic or anything else that like they face more challenges? So the way you communicate with them has to be different. And you may have had a crap day and you're sitting there like, oh my God, I really just want to run into a corner and do my work and never have anyone talk to me again, at least for today. But that's the reality of even just being a good manager, much less being an entrepreneur that's a large enough organization where you have to lead through cultural leadership and manage and be the operations person and clean the toilets and fix the door that broke and everything else you got to do.
Yeah, I think it's very common, especially if you don't necessarily have much experience, or especially like coming from a more technical academic background. There's very much this idea of there is truth. There's the subjective truth. Why can't other people just understand? I'm telling you the truth. And even not technical background, people often come to the table with like, this is my understanding of the truth. Why don't other people understand? And I think it takes a lot of experience, exposure, and introspection to realize that, okay, me saying this is the truth is really ineffective. Like I've been telling people this is the truth for hours and they just aren't listening to me. So maybe there's something about my approach that isn't working, and I need to actually see what is effective for other people, what actually resonates with people, so that I can, like, how do I tailor my personal goals and mission to the audience that I'm talking to? And that is, I don't think that necessarily comes intuitively to a lot of people.
I doubt it comes intuitively almost anybody. That's well, there's an interesting study on the progression of understanding the world. Let's call it that. I remember there's a better name for it. It actually came out of MIT, interestingly enough, Media Labs. The people that I saw, the speaker, but they talk about the very first thing, which is the age of permanence, where and peekaboo is how we train that. Like when something's out of sight, it still exists. Okay. Then there's like, and that's the example they use to get you started. Then there's like, okay, my view of the world is the view of the world.
Theory of mind. Theory of mind is the term.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you go to all these levels of like understanding how other people are motivated by different things and what they say, even though, because we all translate it through our own filters. Like if I had said that, I would have meant blah. But come to find out, they didn't mean blah because they have a different whole world view and came from a whole nother background or whatnot. So like understanding that and that they're motivated by different things, and then even like going beyond that and go, okay, who are the people behind them? Like, okay, this person's married, their partner is also a driver to them, their boss is a driver to them, their customer is a driver to them. Like, how can we find ways not only to communicate, but to find solutions with problems and everything going on that not only fill their needs, but actually fill the needs of the person beyond them? Man, and that's, they say managing up, but it's more of a managing out. Spider web kind of thing.
Yeah, like I feel that a lot of both interpersonal and professional growth just involves learning how to better understanding, to use a very like industry term, stakeholder management, but like to be a bit less, more colloquial, just like knowing all the people involved in the decisions you make and that affect your lives. Because to be frank, the people who affect your lives are so much more than the people you talk to on a day-to-day basis. It's also the people that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. And if you don't understand the relationships of the people you have relationships with, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
It's tough. And then at what point is it just like, okay, I can only manage so far out and get my job done, my life done. I've got so many spoons in the drawer. And at the end of the day, like, oh, you were offended by that, or I said it slightly wrong because your partner and this and something else, like, I don't have any control over that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I really didn't. Like, so there's also, I learned only recently in growing as a person in relationships, like no matter how good of a communicator you are, no matter how good you are at creating safe spaces, at listening, and we all can still work on that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but it also matters that the other person has these skills, because you can open up and do all these things and really be there. And then when you go to do it with them, if they don't have those skills, it can suddenly backfire in this really weird way that suddenly makes you feel like, wow, I'm not doing a good job. It might not be you. It might not.
No, I get that. I actually had an argument with my girlfriend this week, and we like try to meet ourselves halfway. And there was like a decision I had to make, and I didn't know. They both seemed shitty, and I just like made a judgment call, and it was like it happened to be the wrong one, and it upset her. And like, and I said to her, I'm like, I'm sorry. I was just very direct. I was like, I made a judgment call. I'm sorry. I made the wrong judgment. Here's the reasons why she did. She's like, well, you made it for good intentions. Just don't do that next time. But like, because right, we've worked together on trying to communicate better, we can like short circuit and get to an understanding much faster than like you were saying. Like if only one person's good at it, and then you're like pounding your head into the wall.
Yeah. And that's, you go back to some of the cultural norms that are really important. If in an organization you've already set up, or in a relationship, there's a great one. Hey, we never go to bed. You hear some people, and I've never implemented this myself, but this is an example. We never go to bed angry. That sounds like a good one. I've never tried it, but sure. But
I do that one. Actually,
that could be a great one. But that is a cultural norm. If you stop and think about it, you've set up a manner in which you're going to address issues and communicate that both of you already understand. You're not off in the dark doing your own things based on your own backgrounds, so it has a high likelihood of missing and being horrible. Well, organizations need that too. You need ways that are already kind of established that are like, hey, if we have a disagreement, if we, how are you doing your growth paths for people? How are you doing just feedback? What if they did something wrong? We're all going to do something wrong. I do something wrong every day, I'm sure of it. How
I'm
do I
wrong like
get
80% of the time.
I'm starting to hear maybe your girlfriend and what might motivate her, and now I know how to communicate to you better.
No, that's just the engineering background.
Well, I really hope as an engineer you're not 80% wrong. We may
Well, it's more of just used to like, oh, I like by default get everything design reviewed. Like it's not actually, I'm probably right most of the time. I just go in with like, it's probably wrong, get it design reviewed, and then
let's design review this relationship.
Yeah. That's what therapy is, maybe? But it's all, isn't that funny though? Because those are all human behaviors that, whether we're in a business setting, in a personal relationship, even family relationships, there's probably somebody in your family you go to, and when the cousin or uncle or whatever is bad and they talk to, there's some established norms on how these things happen. So the more you can actually put that already in an organization that everybody understands, and that's fair based on the culture, it can't be random. Like on a very high intensity organization, there's meetings where there's just no bullshit. Like, okay, me and you are in this thing, we've got one mediator, we're hashing it out, and it can be rough, but that's the culture. Versus like, oh, maybe a Wildfire has a very different process to talk about, someone was offended with something. Okay, let's see if this was, someone acting very badly as a bad actor, and what do we do? How do we educate them? We're not about punishing. Wildfire, that's a good one. Wildfire was about educating every level of the thing. How did I learn about culture with Wildfire? Because we tried something new every friggin' time. And we told people up front, hey guys, we're trying an experiment this time. We're going to do this thing this way. We have no clue. We think it'll be cool. And we'll find out. But that was the culture. You can't do that everywhere. And it went with poise spin. It went with flow arts, because the first thing you do in any class is you smack yourself with the prop, and you're like, okay, now we're learning. And so that whole thing permeated even the organizational structure, how we did things. It was all about trying something, and that's how we learn. But you couldn't do that in some organizations that don't have that as a fundamental part of your culture.
Yeah, and I think in organizations, it does very much help. Like, we've been talking about this largely in the context of organizations where you are by nature bringing together a lot of people for one mission statement. But even touching on what you said a bit earlier, like on an individual, like person to person level, like everyone is bringing their own cultural background. And I don't necessarily mean like like long history, but just like their personal experiences. That culture is being brought to every interpersonal engagement. And so, like what you were saying, the same thing saying the exact same thing to two people can be taken in completely different ways. And so I think there's an importance to like actively just check it, like at least when you're first meeting someone, have some level of initial good faith. Like this person might be just speaking effectively a different cultural language than you, and then suss out like, was this malicious or was this not? And if it wasn't, then you update your understanding of their cultural background. They have an updated version of your culture, and then you can like work from there.
That's a really good and difficult, especially in our current society, way of viewing the world. Always trying to walk into any situation thinking people are going to try their best. Like, prove me otherwise, and I'm watching for you to prove me otherwise. I'm not just going to take it on blind faith, but just going like, even people that are often bad actors, they quite often think they're doing the right thing. Like, everybody's a hero in their own story. I love that quote, because it's kind of true. We all think we're doing the right thing. And by God, have I done things I look back on like, oh my Christ, like, man, I thought I was doing good there. And ooh, I owe some people some apologies. And I try to go do that, but we all think that. So if you can kind of come in, and it's hard to do, it's really hard to do sometimes, man, is it? But if we
Well,
can,
so
like, take a moment.
yeah, I mean, like one of the things I've kind of learned as I've gotten older is like very few people are actively malicious. Like usually it's there's always a misunderstanding. And like one of the things I've learned going along with that is since I'm not acting malicious, but I might offend someone, I've just always one thing I've always tried to implement and be better about is just saying sorry and meaning it. Like
Mm,
I like because if I was being malicious and I offended someone, then I wouldn't be sorry because I was purposely being malicious.
that's true.
But if I was actually trying, like, but genuinely being doing good faith, and I offend someone, well, then I am sorry because that wasn't the intent, and I want to like understand them and then move forward.
Yeah.
It's good. That's a lesson to practice every day.
And it
Every,
definitely needs practice.
it is. If anybody thinks they'll get it right day one, good. I hope you do. That's I'll say
But if
that.
you think you're doing it like right day 100 or day 200,
It, yeah, I mean, yeah. Try to. There was a really interesting, an interesting story about me, being dumb. Where we were at a big at a big company. There was a huge art department, and we were doing some marketing. Like we were pitching big marketing ideas to a big car manufacturer. And one of the head directors of marketing had like a pizza lunch and brought in all the any artist that wanted to come in could come in and make a little pitch and stuff. We all did little exercises and stuff. And this gentleman who ran it is one of I have the utmost respect for this guy, and he's just a wonderful human. I won't use his name because then it'll give away everything else here and how dumb I was. But at the end, and he's just like, "That's a great idea." Like, "Oh yeah, no, keep going with that one. Keep going with that one." I'm sitting in the room like, that was the stupidest thing I have heard. Like, what in that? Why is he saying? Like, my God. And some of them were good. There were good things. There was stuff that was just like, oh man, this person should never be in a marketing meeting. What are they doing? And and they all left, and I'm sitting there with this gentleman, and I'm like, hey, you got to help me out here, man. You are so positive. You're very encouraging, and I love it. And I want what you got because that was
Right? Yeah, I love being the hype man, but it's hard to
oh,
be
no,
that.
no. And he meant it. I mean, this was not he wasn't just rah rah. He genuine, you could feel it. And I've seen him not be like that. So I know, he's not, that's just not how he is all the time. Like, what was that? How'd you do it? He's like, you got to understand, Chad, I'm an engineer. He's like, these artists from day one in college and stuff like that got told their work was crap. And they got criticized. They had review criticism. They had all these people just kind of down on them, and they've worked their way up and they made it through it and this, that, and the other. And they showed up here today. And I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to appreciate that. I was like, oh, that's good. Stop. It's my problem of where I was offering appreciation. I was appreciating great ideas. I want great ideas. That's what I'm really about. And he was at a level of, I want you to come be a part of this and show up and just be creative with me. I'm like, oh, and funny, I'll do that with spinning arts every day of the week, but I wasn't applying it to other places in my life. And that's absolutely a lesson that I'm still terrible at. But it was really interesting to look at, like, it's about your perspective about where you apply appreciation, where you apply happiness, where you're thankful for things. That often makes a difference on how positive and happy and everything else you are. So that was my little takeaway from that. But man, I was an ass. I'm not gonna lie. I kept it inside, but I was just an ass. It was dumb.
It's almost like having your own like micro mission statements for how like you want to live life,
Yeah.
right? Like instead of like, because being coming also from an engineering background where especially in math, like there's a lot of ways to get an answer, but there's like a correct answer. And so right, and so it's very easy to be like, I'm going to appreciate good ideas, but yeah, like there's a lot of things in life, especially like art, soft sciences, relationship building, where just putting in the effort's actually what matters, because that's what people actually care about.
True. True. And that's defining your goals, defining, how do you people get on me all the time. The lady I'm seeing right now, I keep hounding her every once in a while. I'm like, so how do you define a success? What does success look like? 6 months from now, well, if you are successful, between now and 6 months from now, what would it be? What would you be doing right now, 6 months
So,
from now?
Chad, what do you define success as? How do you-
What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Rolling fingers is what I'm gonna be doing. Play that. That was good. Touche.
Try.
Oh man, have all our renovations at the new shop done 6 months from now. Start renting out some space to other artists to use all of our fun toys. A couple of I want to be deep diving. I've been really boning up again on my programming skills. Like for anybody that's not following what Microsoft has been doing for the last 10 years or so in the programming world, it is night and day where they were 10 years ago. Like they used to be a really closed system and everything, like you do Microsoft and Microsoft only. That is the complete opposite. They are open source. It is unbelievable. And their new platforms they're coming out with look super cool from a programming standpoint. I'm not talking about Microsoft Word, any crap like that. But I want to get back in. I've got some projects that I really want to do that I'm pretty excited about, that are all programming related, you know, a few of them. So that kind of stuff would be fun. Yeah, just have I don't know, still inventing things, still getting to come in here and play with ideas and talk to cool artists, and to actually have something that you think up and then you maybe even build the tool that makes it, and then you make a few and then you ship it out to
Yep.
like really great artists in the US or the world, and they like get it and they're like, oh, can you get me like 5 of these? Dude, that is awesome. That feels so good. So yeah, most of my day is ordering supplies and fixing broken things and managing all the stuff you got to do. But some of the day you get to do the really fun, cool stuff too.
Well, so we started with Wildfire. So you actually never talked about your company. Since you're talking about your day to day, you might want to talk about what you're currently actually doing right now.
Let's see. So I started way back in the day. I'm a tinkerer. I'm an engineer myself, and my first poi I got in '03, right before I went to the first Fire Drums. It was my first time lighting up. Was at that first Fire Drums. But then I started when I came back on the East Coast. The only place you could really order from, there was only a few places. The biggest one was in New Zealand, called Home of Poi, which actually closed down during the pandemic, which was really sad. That was like the end of an era.
Yeah, because I remember, or before your company, that's where everyone got their stuff from. Yeah.
It was. Yeah, there were some other places around, but really Home of Poi was big. But they were in New Zealand, so there was shipping. There was some things there. The U.S. market changed much quicker than the rest of the world. The innovation that happened here. There's a lot more spinners here. There's a lot more people that participate in the spinning arts in the U.S. than anywhere else in the world. So that drove a lot of it. And I think our culture in general is very innovative in a lot of ways. Now there's amazing spinners in the rest of the world. Like Russia right now has got some unbelievably phenomenal spinners. And so Europe, other places too. But yeah, I started tinkering, making some of my own stuff because it was fun. And then I've always had little side companies. I've always had a little side hustle, runs in my family. So I started selling some stuff to friends and things like that. Went to Wildfire, had a little booth there. I'm like, oh yeah, because people needed equipment too. Like,
yeah, that's where I bought my first staff, was your booth. So
oh
yeah,
goodness.
yeah, I still have her. Her name's Vera. After Firefly, it's what's his game? The guy, his
You don't look at me.
Anyway,
I didn't know.
No.
Oh, it's
Is that
Jane.
okay?
It's Jane's gun is Vera. That's what from Firefly. So I named my staff Vera after it.
Nice. But I was doing that for a bit, and I had a full-time job doing things, and then I closed down my little side business because it actually got popular. I'm like, I don't have time for this, so I shrunk it. I didn't close it all the way, but I took the website down, just went to like 1 or 2 events and sold there and stuff. And then I was leaving that big consulting company. I'd been there 3 or 4 years, and it was really a burnout kind of role. Phenomenal, but it was intense. And yeah, they had a leaving package that they were downsizing. Consulting companies go through cycles every few years. They go up, go down. It's just the nature of the beast. So got in on the down cycle. They gave me a farewell package. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna use this time and take this business and see where it goes. Found a guy who was became a very close friend, Adrian, who was kind of hired him. He was my right-hand guy, and we brought on some more people, and yeah, and just started building Dark Monk was the name of the company. Rebranded at the time, came up with a name, did a whole exercise on, okay, like what do we want to be about? Okay, we're about really intense study, and we're like a library. We're like the place you go when you want to learn about the equipment, not about spinning. There's plenty of spinning locations, although we might have something in the works to help that.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, programming. But we want to be the place where we do experiments. You know, we even thought about doing a series called Monk Busters. So we would take all the
That's
like
fun.
crazy stuff people come up with and like, hey, we're going to test it, see if it's true or not. Time has prevented us from doing that. But we still have a lot of, like on our website, we teach like how to sew things, re-grip things, re-wick things. So we try to be an information source about the equipment side of stuff. And that's the Monk name kind of came from that. And then we needed something edgy, or at least we thought. What? Come on.
No, it's true. I mean, it makes sense. I agree. I think I'm laughing because I agree. Like,
Oh, well, it's either going to be Dancing Monk or no, Dancing Monk, I think it was, or Dark Monk. And we kind of tested that with a few people. I'm like, oh, Dark Monk.
yeah, dark. I definitely Dark Monk.
So I'm laughing at edginess because like back in my day, like I used to have hair like down to here,
Yeah.
and I was a very big metalhead and I was a very edgy kid growing up. So it's more just like empathetic edgy laughter. Yeah.
No, it is kind of weird. It's really weird to be successful. Like that's something like, you know, everybody's got really interesting preconceived notions of what it's like to be at the top of a company or be successful, this, that, the other. I think most of them are probably wrong. Most of the preconceived notions are probably completely wrong. One, it's not, happiness is not based on your success in the world, period. That is total BS. Happiness is a totally different beast. It's based on completely different things. It could, like they could align, and they may have nothing to do with each other. I know plenty of people that have a ton of money that are miserable. I know some that are super happy, and the whole other end of the spectrum, like that you are, I don't know, flamboyant. You go to parties, and there's all these friends you have and stuff like that. Yeah, you need to forget that. That ain't true at all. Like, you know, when you the more, even I think with programmers or anything, the more down the path you get of something, the more isolating it is. There's just not a lot of people there. You don't have a lot of peers. You don't, like, you certainly can have friends and stuff, but when you want to talk about like the stresses, like the number of people that know what it's like to come home after having 15 completely different things you had to solve and problems you had to do and roles you had to play. Not just, okay, you're the salesperson, which is stressful. I mean, I'm not taking away from any of that stuff, but you got to be the person that jumps in and be the problem solver. Like, you're not just someone that's just helping. Sometimes you got to be the expert. You got to find the answer. And that's exhausting. That is really tiring. And you got to be on your A game because you're managing people, and you got customers you're talking to, and you might post on the internet because you don't have a marketing department. You're it. I mean, it's exhausting, and you don't want to talk to people when you go home. You know, you're like, I want to go home. I want to watch anime and you know, yeah, set my room.
Good stuff.
Right? Like, if you're not watching Tokyo Revengers right now, you should be watching Tokyo Revengers. It's great new series.
They do not sponsor us.
Hey, little plug there. Maybe they will now.
we said we did that about Masterclass too. Maybe they'll sponsor us.
We'll see.
You got a better chance with them, I think, than yeah, Tokyo Revengers.
Yeah, Kodansha or like whoever the big publishing companies are.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story longer, if your search, it's like anything. People say, hey, if I get this education, I'll be happy. If I get this great job, I'll be happy. If I marry someone that's, you know, a good person, I'll be happy. Sometimes it's true. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I find at my age and having watched enough and experienced enough that it's not so much about doing the activity as it's about figuring out yourself and figuring out what actually is going to make you happy and healthy. Like if you boil down what your life should be really about, how can you stay happy and healthy the longest? And whoever stays happy and healthy the longest wins. I don't know. It didn't necessarily about how much money you got. I mean, and there is a level of financial stability that really matters. And please don't, I certainly didn't come from money, but at the same time, I didn't come from some of the very difficult situations that many, many, many other people do. I was very lucky in that regard. But still, even in that regard, like, do you want to be an entrepreneur? Well, pause. Come hang out with an entrepreneur for a bit. Like, don't watch reality TV and think that's what it's
Shark
like.
Tank. Everyone is Shark Tank.
Oh God, the number of people that asked me to go on Shark Tank, I'm like, are you freaking kidding? No way in hell. That looks terrible. But I didn't want, so I have several good friends that are entrepreneurs. Some of them have gone the route of venture capital. And because they are fine with giving away large parts of their company, bringing in, and venture capitalists will also be good strategists. They'll introduce you to people that can help your business. There's very good reasons to go this route, but you're also shrinking your decision-making and ownership of the company. And if your goal is to sell it in 10 years and make a ton of money, which doesn't happen that often, everybody thinks it does, there's a very good possibility it won't for you. So go into it knowing that. That's great. But make the conscious decision why you're doing this and how this is going to affect your happiness and your health versus having more of a lifestyle company where, you know what, you're going to grow slower. You're going to, and growth is very difficult to manage. You don't want to be down 50% in sales, but being up 50% in sales is really challenging and can kill a company. You can absolutely die by having too much sales.
Right, because you could have lead times, get a reputation for being out of stock and not delivering. Yeah.
Your quality gets a smash because you're trying to get stuff out the door quickly. Your reputation goes in the toilet. You don't test your new vendors. There's all kind of reasons that rapid growth can kill a company. You run out of cash flow. You do something stupid. I mean, people that don't understand cash flow management, you will learn real quick. That's the lifeblood of a company. Like that, everything is about, do you have cash in the bank at the end of the month or not? Or you don't have a business, like you're done. So you got to manage that. So that's all operations. What really is going to make you happy? I have so many friends that have decided not to be promoted at companies because they're like, I'm happy. I'm making enough money. I've got a retirement path here. I don't want to manage more people. I don't want the more responsibility. And there are people that look down on that. And I think some folks that have gone through it and have more experience look at that and go, good for you. That's great. You want to have weekends and nights and spend time with your family and go on vacations? But fucking bravo. Like I wish that was what would make me happy and I could do that, because honestly, that sounds great. But knowing myself, wouldn't be happy in that situation.
So talking about the path of happiness, which honestly, that is a long journey of like self-introspection to like find what works for you. I guess two questions. One, what has that journey been like for you finding that? And also being a successful entrepreneur, mentioning like the isolation that comes with that. Knowing what you know now regarding that isolation, would you still have gone down this path?
Yes, definitely. So everybody not only are you handed different cards from your economic standpoint, your mental acuity standpoint, some people are geniuses and they're born that way. Some people have great educations in their youth. They have opportunities to go to great colleges, high schools, whatever. Everybody's got a different deck of cards that they come into all this with. Mine had some mental health issues, and I won't be shy about that. I certainly suffer from depression. I've been at the edge of suicide before in my life. Have a inner dialogue that tells me no matter what I do, it's not good enough. And that voice I hear. I know many very financially successful people that suffer from mental health issues that is one of the reasons that they drove themselves to be successful, because they're trying to overcome those things. So, I mean, I can certainly talk about my path. It will not match anyone else's path in the world, and I really, really hope no one else does ever. I think it's unrealistic to ever think you're always going to be happy. Like, you know, I think America has this, you know, marketing, advertising, we watch too much TV, that, you know, happiness is just this thing that always happens. And we get very disappointed and angry and upset at ourselves when that's not the case. And we're not happy all the time. But I also come from a view of, I suffered from mental health issues and didn't even realize it until my mid 30s. Like, I didn't even know. When I first really went into a therapist, and a good one. Oh man, I was so lucky to have found a great one. He asked me in our first session, like, do you think you suffer from depression? I'm like, hell no. I don't think so. Maybe. Wait, why do you ask that? Totally, exactly what happened right there. And he's like, oh, nothing. Write something on a piece of paper. I'm like, oh shit. I've got some learning to do. And it was a lot of learning. And man, when you realize, like, oh, one of the biggest symptoms of depression is that you hide it. You think everybody else is just like you. So, hey, they're doing fine. So they don't talk about it. So you should be doing fine. So you should. Oh, there's all kind of bad things. But there's a term called the gifts of depression. And it comes with probably some mental health issues. But they're the things that actually benefit you in life. Like, I'm very observant of people. And that comes from some other, like, PTSD issues. But like, there's things that actually can make you very successful in certain ways of looking at success that are the gifts of some of these, you know, rather debilitating or limiting, let's say, issues. So I would say, to answer your question, the path to happiness is about understanding what makes you happy, understanding what you bring into where you currently are in your life. Everybody's got something. I mean, I know people that have had great childhoods, and they're awesome. It's lovely. It's wonderful. But they have different things that make them happy than what makes me happy. Like, I have to see progress in my life. I have to. Like, it's not if I don't, I can fall into a bad mental health place. Is that good? I don't know, but I know that about myself. So I put myself in a position in life where that's going to be always around me and always the case. So it's kind of like, okay, really, really take some time, talk to a therapist. If you already understand yourself, awesome. Talk to your partner on, like, really deep levels. Do some LSD. I don't know, whatever it is, to, like, break down those internal walls. To really,
just to clarify, this is not for children. No, it's okay. It's okay. Totally fine.
So, I mean, there's a lot of research going on right now in hallucinogenics and how they can help some of these things. But anyway, it's so different for everybody, and don't be afraid to admit this isn't working. I'll tell you. Okay, so here's one for you. This is a great one. Secret to happiness. You ready?
That's the best episode it's ever going to be.
Yeah,
Chad's going to tell us the secret to happiness right now.
Yes. Well, let me say the exercise. Here's the exercise. Every night for 30 days, just 30 days. Every night before you go to bed, think to yourself, today, in this day, what were the things that got me closer to being healthy and made me happy? Small things, could be any damn thing. You know, you said hey to your neighbor. I don't give anything. How can you do more of those things tomorrow? Little stuff. I mean, make very just little things. Then, what are the things today that kept me from being healthier and being happy? How do I leave them in today? That's a really important word choice. Not how do I fix them? Not how do I address them? How do I let go of them? Do that every night and just pick a few. Just try to come up with 2, maybe 3 max, and implement it the next day. Try to, and it's fine if you make a mistake. Big deal. You did it again today. Big deal. No big deal. Whatever. You got in an argument with somebody and you're like, that's the thing preventing me. How do I let go of that? What am I holding on to? Why am I in an argument with them? Like, are we arguing over like how to package a box? Like, what the fuck are we arguing about? Like, seriously, what am I holding on to? Is this ego? Is this like perfectionism? Is this, let it go. Don't fix it. Don't work on it. Let it go. Try that for 30 days. It'll change your life. I'm not kidding. It will absolutely change your life.
One thing I will say is, well, one, I love what you said. Resonated really fucking hard with me.
Yeah.
And 2, also, like, you completed the description of that in like 5 minutes, but that isn't to say that this is easy.
Oh God. No.
Yeah. Like, it's the description sounds really easy, but as someone who's tried something similar to that, especially if you are like really struggling, it is hard to actually let go of the things that are eating you.
Mm-hmm. And I would say my suggestion is don't take on the big stuff. Take on little things, because your life is made up of little choices you make every day. Very rarely do we make big choices. Most of our life is little choices every day.
Yeah.
That's really fair, because one of the big stressors I had for like the last year during the entire pandemic is I had to write my thesis, and there was no like, it was a massive stressor, and the only solution was to finish my thesis. There was no like, I probably shouldn't quit grad school and not get my degree. Like, kind of like, right? It's like, and right. So if trying to pick that as the thing to let go every day, that would be really hard. I did do smaller things like, okay, take my mind off of it.
Sure.
That became like, I'd go to dance class. But yeah, so I definitely really understand the idea of like starting with smaller ways to implement it. So maybe it is maybe the really big stressor is the thing you need to focus on, but you, instead of trying to let go of it, just try to distract yourself for an hour. So it's just not always there. Or if it's like,
Yeah.
What stressed you out about it every day? What was the God, I just can't start. What was that?
Oh, it was just the hours. Like, it was just like, it was to get to there. Part of it is like how you were saying, like, there is this internal dialogue, like you might not be like good enough, or like there was a certain quality that I, to be happy, needed my thesis to be, for me to be happy. And that was it, and to hit that in the time span I had to write it meant I was going to have to just work insane hours and not make necessarily healthy choices. And I mean, there's a lot of different solutions to this problem. I could have learned to reduce my standards, and tried to be happier with like, or, but so it was just like a very hard situation to be in. But
That's
being
a
on
tough
the other side of it, it feels good. I don't know. It's hard
It was
because it's
very
like
convincing. You really
Well,
got it. Oh, good.
I would not recommend grad school to most people. Like,
And that's another thing. So I did my MBA at Boston College. Very happy that I went there. I had some amazing professors and got to meet some wonderful people. But everybody, oh, you should go to grad school. Like, ooh, hold on there. Like, why? Like, is this going to be something that like makes you happier and healthier and achieve some of the goals you got in life, and like you really want to, like, before you make that call? Or is it something everybody's saying, well, you got to do it to get a job and you got to do it to this? And well, maybe, but maybe not.
Our society, I think, touches on a lot of shoulds. Like, there's all these things you should do without ever going into like, does this actually make sense for you?
Right.
And honestly, even my mom, for example, she only recently has been able to acknowledge that a should that she lived with for her entire life was not one that she actually agreed with, and she actually wanted to like take that in a different direction. And there are some people who live their whole lives based off of these social shoulds rather than finding their own path, and that sucks. And but it's understandable because it's very easy to fall into pre-paved paths,
Yep.
but it it sucks to like go down a path that you don't realize isn't you're not happy with or isn't good for you.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like,
And our parents are trying to do what they think would have been the best thing for us, and they also come from a 30 years prior to us culture, which culture has changed a lot, society has changed a lot. Now just throw in like we're going to be trying to do that with the next generation, but hey,
Yeah.
guess what? AI is about to change the whole friggin' world. Like what's about to happen that is going to fundamentally change our culture with automation and AI and some of this stuff is going to change everything. So our advice might be crap. You know, we need to maybe not say shoulds to people and let them. How do you do it though? How do you encourage people at a young age to figure out what makes them happy, and also kind of keep in mind like, well, just because you really enjoy being a dancer, I kind of want to make sure that you know have a income and can make it. And I am glad I'm not a parent. I'll throw it out there. That is a really, really tough job. I don't want it.
And to bring like kind of full circle to our conversation, because some shoulds come from like a social culture of like, this is our cultural values, so you should do these things. But at the same time, there's a level of individualism that comes into play that you also, even though there's this giant macroscopic social culture, there is a level of culture that you create for yourself, a level of this is the truth that I've stumbled upon that isn't objective, but based on my life experiences, it is.
Sure.
That journey is rough. Like
I feel very few people get to a place of maybe, and that's what enlightenment is. I don't know. Where you can stop and go like, hey, Chad, why don't you go back and get a great job and actually make real money? And work in consulting and something like that again. Like, you know, you could be really sad. You were really good at it. Like, yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I do not want to go back there. But you know, no. Well, I'm happy. I'm healthy-ish. Maybe not super healthy. I'm literally eating like leftover pad thai with beans I put on top of it. Like,
oh, that's healthy as beans.
yeah, that's true. Sure. But you know, at the same time, it's like I'm choosing consciously. And that there's a really important thing there. So many people don't choose consciously their path. They think they are, but they're really not. Like they're really kind of, this came along in the path, and so they went this direction, but they didn't, you know, really stopping and going like, okay, here's the pluses and here's the minuses. And I'm going to choose to do this. I've entered into maybe a dating relationship or we're like, this is the pluses and this is the minuses, and it may not go well, but you know what? I care about this person. I want to go down this path. But that's making a conscious choice about your career, your family. Like I live very far away from my family and I love them very dearly. But I had to make that conscious choice to come live in Boston, Massachusetts, and be here. And back when I first did it, it wasn't a conscious choice. I just followed the job and this, that, and the other. It's like, but you didn't mindfulness, taking that true step back and looking at what these choices mean and consciously saying, you know what? I know that bad thing's going to happen. When it does, I chose it. And I'm on that.
I get that. So like, I think one of the things I have kind of learned is like, in trying to be like, when people like ask me for advice now and stuff like that, or like I usually, instead of telling people what they should do, I usually just, maybe this is my more enlightened way of doing it, is I just usually tell a story that I think is related and try to like let them try to make their own, relate to it in their own way and walk away with it. And I think like a very common one is like people are like, should I go to grad school? And it's interesting about when you're saying that making the conscious decision. Because the real reason I got my PhD, well, I guess it's SCD, but Doctor of Science. I just say PhD because that's what everyone says. But
SCD,
yeah,
SCD. Okay,
Yeah,
just want
yeah,
to
it really sounds like we
emphasize-
might need to have another conversation before we. That's-
but
Go ahead.
but when I finished my master's, and people were like, "Well, you should continue on and get your doctorate." And what I did is I went and I got a ton of job offers, and I could obviously stay and get my doctorate. And I had like a really high paying job offer at McKinsey, and I could have went there, and so it moved from right because then at that point, what is the should? Is the should get the higher degree, or should go make tons of money and like be at McKinsey, right? And so also I was in a situation where there was no shoulds, and I had to kind of like do what you were saying, Chad, is make an actually conscious decision based on these pros and cons. This is the direction I'm going to take my life. And so like what I was gonna say, and that's when people ask me, should I go to grad school? That's why I just tell them the story. I don't know, like, I don't know if you should or not. This is what happened to me.
Right.
And if I had advice, it would be to discover what your opportunities are and then evaluate it, like you were saying.
Yeah, I think I would throw it back at him. What do you want to get from grad school? I think that would be my first question. Like, why are you going? Like, there's great reasons to go. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but have you thought it through? Have you taken a moment to go like, oh, well, I want more job opportunities or this, that, and the other. Like, I want to make a ton of money. I mean, our first day in our, it wasn't econ. It was the financial analysis class, like how to analyze books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Present value of money. Present value of money. Yeah, it's a great term, right? Great term. Yeah. So how much is $1 worth today versus $1 years in the future versus where you put it at? And yeah, the professor does this analysis to explain what present value of money is, to say, hey, you're now putting $60,000 into a graduate degree. You could be earning money, gaining experience, going up the corporate ladder versus this. You may get a higher paying job. And he does this present value of money comparison, and it took like 50 years to pay off the education of your MBA. And you're like, dude, seriously? Really? And it hit home, but I didn't go there. I wanted my MBA. Like I didn't want the degree. I wanted the education. I'd spent almost 10 years doing small business, a few large business, like working out in the world. I was kind of old to go back. I was 29, I think. Most people go right out of undergrad. I highly do not recommend that. I think that is a bad idea.
Yeah, same with science grad degrees. Yeah, don't go straight out of undergrad.
Don't. Especially business. You need to go. And if people really wanted to go the path, go work at small companies, because you'll get all kind of diverse experience, because they always need some help somewhere, and be the person that's there learning about it. And yeah, sure, I'll help you out. What can I do? Like, yeah, you're not going to get paid for it. Hopefully your motivation is, I want to learn this stuff. I want to get good at this stuff. Then go back, get your MBA. And when they're sitting in class explaining present value of money or how to do all these different systems and operations and stuff, you'll be like, oh my God, that is exactly what happened to us back in that other thing. I see, oh my goodness. Oh, that structure would have worked great for that. And other people are like, oh, structure. And they're writing it to take a test later. And it's in one ear, out the other. And don't get me wrong, they're smart people. They will remember it. It'll mean so much more to you because you'll have lived it. And then suddenly you're going, I know how to apply this stuff. It'll stick with you. That's my recommendation. That's what I got to do. And I loved it. It was awesome to be around these brilliant people that we could have these great conversations about stuff like that. So yeah, I'll probably never, net present value, maybe make back the money that it actually cost me to go, but I don't care. I mean, I'm lucky to be in that situation. I cannot care, to some degree. I certainly, not driving a Tesla or anything, but
yeah. But not everyone is in that kind of financial situation, and
Absolutely
it is
not.
important to acknowledge. Yeah, totally get it.
Oh, and right out of MBA, I almost went bankrupt. Like
really?
Yeah. Oh, I was almost out, couldn't pay my mortgage. It was not good. Like I've been at very rock bottom before. Yeah, like that. And that's another part of the life of a lot of entrepreneurs. Like not everyone, but most of them, you go through boom and bust cycles, and that's real, especially as you're figuring it all out. Yeah, and I've gone through more than one, but certainly you can be at rock bottom where you're like, if I don't come up with some side work or something, I can't pay my mortgage this month. Definitely has happened to me. I would probably guess many entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That's real. I mean, Elon talks about that third rocket. If that third rocket hadn't actually worked, the whole company was gone. Like there wouldn't
Yeah.
be any of that stuff now. They did it. They pulled it off. Speaking of Elon, if you're listening,
I mean, place all of us. Actually, Tyler has some research that Elon would very much enjoy. So I'm gonna let you tweet out about that later. But
well, my dissertation was on a novel way to control the orientation of satellites by levitating and spinning a magnet inside the satellite. You basically, because it's a magnet, you can interact with coils to get levitation, and then you could use reaction torques to rotate the satellite.
So like a gyroscope that's based off of electromagnetic fields using solar energy instead of having to have small amounts of solid propulsion to keep it in place or move it around.
Yep. But as useful as that is, because you run out of propulsion in space, funding just keeps disappearing for this project. And there's a running joke right now that I should just tweet my dissertation at Elon Musk because it might like just work.
As long as there's memes.
Yeah.
I heard a great and I think very true statement from Elon. I like watching him every once in a while. He's a character now.
Yeah.
He's brilliant, obviously, but man, I have a lot of respect for him. Some of the stuff is a little out there, but I like it. He said they were asking him, what's the biggest limitation? What's stopping you? Why aren't we doing blah blah blah? He's like, there is a fundamental lack of truly talented and qualified engineers to get it done. I think he's right. I think he's 100% right. And I think that's where, specifically, let's just say China, third world, I'd say other countries, but honestly, China, is already beating us, and like the U.S. doesn't even realize it. Like the number of areas that they are already outpacing us, and they have been so focused for 30 years, 35 years to get here. Like with 10-year plans that they implement every 10 years. We can barely get something together for a year, maybe 9 months at our governmental level. They have been making huge investments for decades, and they're building that infrastructure that is going to push, like they're already going to like beat us. And we don't even realize that we're already this far behind. Maybe they're not there yet, but they have everything behind them, pushing them that way where we're just kind of chugging along. So yeah, I'd highly encourage you to send a little note to Elon. Why not? What is he going to do? Just ignore you? Fuck him. Send it to him.
That's the worst that can happen.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, you're highly qualified engineers. I would think. It sounds like it. So send him a note.
People have said I'm highly qualified, but I don't know. It's
not more of this.
As House once said, people lie.
I have that fridge magnet.
And
Nice.
it is interesting. Like something I was talking with my friends about like a few weeks ago is it doesn't hurt to just shoot your shot, like to just like try, and the worst thing that can happen is a no.
Stop it. Don't even. No. If you're going to make it happen, you don't just shoot your shot. You call them, you email them, you call them again, you fax them, because somewhere there's a fax machine that still exists, maybe.
It's in the car heading to Mars.
That would be funny.
That'd be really funny. There's a fax machine on that.
We had one vendor ask us to fax something over. I was like, what is it, the 90s? I'm not going to fax you anything. What are you talking about?
It still happens.
One vendor today asked me to email credit card information. I'm like, what? What do you, no, do not email credit card information. Anyone listening, don't do that. That's dumb. But anyway, no, you don't. No. Let me stop you there. If you're going to you be obnoxious, drive. The way things get done is be nice, be polite, because you should. That's be human. But don't take no for an answer. and I mean, let's also put this in context. Consent, always take no for an answer. Only an emphatic yes means yes, period. That is how consent works, anyone listening. Yes is all that means yes, period. There is no silent consent. All right, moving on. But for Elon, friggin' like, send him an email. Find out where he's gonna be. Go be a groupie. Like, if this is what you want, do everything it takes to make it happen.
No, that's fair. I think the only reason I haven't done it is like just other life. Like I just moved a week ago, right? Like I think no, I'm not saying I won't do it. I'm just saying like I don't want to having come off of working 60 to 80 hours a week.
Sure.
I would like to work 40 for a bit before I go hard again.
And you should. That's very fair. Like, take a breath. That's again back to the healthy and happy. You got to have those downtimes.
Yeah.
Between the big stuff.
No, but October things will be calm. I'll finally have had a calm month.
I'll make sure you get a Twitter.
Right.
All right, action items.
A close friend of mine is head engineering manager at NASA down in Florida. You want me to pass some stuff along?
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
You don't, I won't drop names because But
no, I will message you after this. Folks, this is how connections work.
And that's I was always an anti like networking, like oh boy, networks suck, that's terrible. But networks are really powerful, and it doesn't have to be slimy. It doesn't have to be like this. It's one of those like, find things you're interested in, like really interested in. That's like your thing. If it's your thing, think about it. You want to talk about it. You really do. You want to share it with somebody because it's like, oh, it's my thing. I want to talk to you about 3D printing or CNC design, programming. Oh my God, right this second I could talk to you about so much stuff about programming. If you hit me up and said, hey, I'm trying to like decide on how to architect a Microsoft solution, I'm like, dude, I'm not an expert, but here's everything I know. People that are afraid to ask others about their passions don't really get how much that other person wants to talk about their passion. Like, it's fine. And then when you make those connections, like, one, care about the person. It shouldn't just be like, I'm using you for something. That's not okay. But at the same time, caring about them and also saying, hey, you're really into this. Do you know anybody that also, a great example, during the face shield project that we ran, somebody suddenly volunteered this silicone elastic to go around the face shield. So because we couldn't find a source for elastic because everyone's using it for masks, super hard to find. They came up with a solution. Awesome person, got to know them. They're into plastic injection molding. They work at a big company that makes the raw material here in Massachusetts. I bought my own plastic injection molding machine. I can't wait to use it.
That's amazing.
Excited. Oh man, I'm so excited. So I started talking to them and they're like, yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that. I'm like, hey, for these nunchucks that we're building, we really need an extrusion that's a like foamed something. I'm not even sure what. And he's like, we have 2 of those machines. Like, huh? He's like, yeah, we run sample stuff for customers all the time. You want us just to run a whole bunch of sample for you, or we can charge you a little bit? I'm like, yes.
That's amazing.
And that is, to me, I have this whole network of people. Like, people tell me, you're a networker. I'm like, I'm not a networker. They're like, yeah, Chad, you need to work on your forklift this weekend. You got to replace the valves and the head gasket. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll call David. We'll go and do it together. It'll be a lot of fun. Monday, me and David are going to go work on my forklift and replace the head gasket and the valves because he's an awesome guy. He's a Volvo genius, like motor working genius. And we're going to go hang out and have a good time. So that is networking. It's not the slimy way of doing it, but you can actually spend time with friends, do cool things together, and find people who are passionate about this stuff that want to do it and hang out with you too. That's great networking. That's wonderful. Do it.
Yeah. I think the way to actually engage in networking in a positive way that it is actually not just slimy utilitarian, just like trying to use people, is there are things you can acknowledge. These are the things I care about. I want to find communities and engage in these communities with the things I care about, learn from them, share what I know. And the more you actually speak out on both sides, like give and take, the more you just organically have a community and you have a network.
Yep. It's true.
Like when I go to I mentioned this before in a previous episode, the American Society of Precision Engineering conferences. Like, I do a lot of networking there, not because I'm like hunting down people, but because I present, and then people ask me questions, and then they'll come up to me like, "Oh, you're really good at this. Can you like advise me on this?" And the next thing you know, everyone's like, "Go talk to Tyler about classic controls. He'll go like whip up a solution right now on the spot."
Yeah.
And that's nice because then I'm like, "Oh, I guess I know so and so in microchip manufacturing, and oh yeah, I can reach out to them and they'll tell me, oh, I need to get this weird 12-layer board. Okay, they'll know who I should go contact. Not that if you make an example, I only had to do 4-layer PCBs like normal stuff.
That's still some layers. That's somebody's doing some design work there. That's not nothing. But yeah, I would say like you do have to put a little effort in to maintain these networks. Like, and some of it's just you get to know the people. Like you call them up and like, hey, I remember your daughter was going to one. I'm checking in, seeing how you're doing. I remember that thing we talked about. I'm actually doing it. Like I'll send you some pictures. How's your daughter doing? I heard she's going. You said she was about to go to college. Is everything going there? Like they need to be real friendships, in my opinion. Like I would feel weird if I was just calling somebody and didn't like know them or anything. But I also say like I'm also one that like I don't have a lot of time, and it's really cool when I can find my friends that it overlaps with something else I'm doing, so we can both do the friendship hangout and get these other things done. Like that's pretty neat, and I wish it happened more, honestly. So that's my networking spiel. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I didn't know we would be talking about that today.
I love that. I love that meme.
And now we're
I really, honestly, one of the things I like about this podcast is just learning everyone's like vastly different perspectives. And I think almost every time we've talked to a new person, we have learned something new. And actually, the last person we talked to had their own perspective on networking because they are the vice president of like a association of concierges, and yes. There's you should watch our last episode because like there's some really interesting stuff that we learned. There's an international association of concierges that just if you are a part of it and it's invite only, but if you're part of it, you can just make almost anything happen. Is it wild? Yeah, but
that's cool.
Yeah, so talking with him, his approach on networking, or what I learned from him, was like if you have an organizational structure where you are all members of this network, then you can leverage the connections that pre-existing infrastructure has with other people. So like the networking we've talked to with you is a lot more personal and actually like knowing people and how to meet people through aligned interests.
Yep.
And last time was more about like this is how infrastructural networking happens and what the benefits that provides are. So I love learning this shit. It's awesome.
I would say that comes back to bring it all the way back around. That comes back to culture. Like, what is the culture of like my life and my professionalism and what I do versus the culture of a concierge and what they do and how important a network like that would be to that organization. Like huge, it's absolutely huge. But for me, I need a network of people that, that know a little bit about plastic injection molding, 3D printing, CNC manufacturing, maybe run 1 or 2 maker spaces so I can bounce, hey, what do I do for access code at the door and, membership and, all kind of weird questions like that.
By the way, I did help run a makerspace at MIT, so I can give you advice on things if you want to know, Chad.
We should talk.
Yeah.
Randall, one of the founders of the place out in Worcester, he's a good personal friend of mine. He's a lovely human. They're doing the workshop is the name of it. And it's for those that interested in makerspace and Worcester. And then there's Artisans Asylum, of course, in Boston, which is amazing. But now I think we're way off topic. What are we talking about?
Well, I mean, we are on topic. We're talking about the passions. I mean, leveraging your network to achieve what you want to do with Dark Monk. I feel like that's directly on topic.
Oh, it matters so much. Like, and you can only YouTube so much. You can only be a YouTube expert on so many things. You got to get out there and do it. Know yourself. Like I'm an experimental learner. That's one of the things that makes me a tinkerer. I need to break stuff and like, oh, that's how it works. Crap, I broke it. But now I know how it works. Maybe the next time I'll get it right. Other people aren't that way. So, you're not a tinkerer. That's fine. But there's so many things where I'll call up friends, Blake, or just anybody that's, oh, I know a great TIG welder. I know a great person that moves stuff between shops, and I have no idea how to strap it down. I own a forklift now. That's so weird, but I do.
So cool though.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't drive it. That's a different story entirely. but I can call up some people that are friends that I care about them. I really, really do. They're wonderful humans, but they're also kind of experts in certain areas that are. It's great to be able to have those connections, to be able to say, hey, can I use regular straps on a flat? Like, where do I even get a flatbed? Can I get a flatbed and put a CNC machine on it? Like, how does that work? And they're like, yeah, actually use these type of straps. You can call up this company. You can actually rent them over here. You can have stuff without a CDL license. Like, what the hell is a CDL license? Click, 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 click. Oh, that's what a CDL license is. Cool. Like, but without those people, it would take you 10 times longer to figure it out if you figured it out. And that might not be what you really want to be doing. You need help. And then maybe that's entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs. You need help. So don't ever think you can do it alone. You got to do a lot of it alone. There's many a late night that you're working on your own stuff. You need help. We all need help, period.
Potentially mental health help as well.
Oh gosh, yes,
Yeah.
potentially mental health. It's interesting because I think every entrepreneur has a little bit of a not invented here syndrome. If you ever heard of that before, like, oh, that's a great idea, but we're not going to. We didn't. Yeah. And truthfully, it's an ego thing. It's not invented here is the nice way consultants put it. But you got to get over that, man. You got to, if you're trying to solve an objective, you have a mission statement, and then you have objectives. All that that stuff gets easier to let go of. It's not easy, but easier. And yeah, you gotta learn to let go of like, hey, this person's going to do it different than you. Does it get to the same result, or at least 75% of what you need? Then shut up, go do the other thing. Like, you got to do that, and it's really, really hard as a founder and entrepreneur and someone that's decently good at a lot of stuff to shut up, walk away. No, they're not going to do it the way you would do it, and that's fine. It got done. It got done good enough. Go do the other thing that you need to do.
Well, that goes back to like the beginning in the mission statement, right? Like when you gave someone, you gave someone this objective, you redoing it doesn't, if they're already going to do it to meet the mission statement, you redoing it is not going to meet the mission statement. That's detrimental. You doing something else at that time meets the mission statement.
Yep. And sometimes they'll do it better than you. And sometimes you're like, oh, that's a terrible idea. And then they do it, and you're like, shit, that was a better idea than mine. Yeah. And that happens. And take a moment to tell them, like, hey, I know I said that was maybe not the way I would do it, and it might have looked down at you while you're doing it. That was really good. You did good. Sorry. Like, do it. Like, suck it up.
This is another just do it moment.
Well, no, I think it's more just like, you gotta say sorry. It's difficult. It's difficult to train it. You gotta admit when you're wrong, because then it makes it easier when you're right. Right?
Yeah. And know that you set the example. Like, there's nothing more important than how you act. There was a really great, one of my professors in my MBA program, he had a brilliant, I love this. He called them leadership moments. This is great. It's so good. You don't get many. You get very few. But the ones that are there, the leadership moments where you can step up and demonstrate the culture, demonstrate what you're trying to build as the norms. When those happen, as best you can, do it. Like, and some are hard. Some are walking out going, hey guys, I fucked up. Like, I had made that change to that design and I didn't test it properly and I didn't bring it over to Brad, even though, yeah, I'm the founder, but we all get our first ones checked by somebody else every time. And that's how you do it. And I totally screwed it up. I just want you guys to know. And that's how it is.
Yeah, I get that design review every single time.
You do. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do it. But I mean, at Wildfire, that was a big thing. Like when things would go wrong, I think the natural thing for everybody is to shove it under the rug, right? Like you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to admit that shit. You especially don't want to do it in a big way. Or when somebody acts out, like never call them out public, but at the same time, you got to make the norms known. Like this person was drunk at Wildfire. Like Wildfire is a drive-in, those that don't know. It's enforced in that if we can see it, hear it, or smell it, then you screwed up. If we can't, but somebody was just sloppy drunk out there. Yeah, they were banned from the event for a year. And we went online and said, hey, just as an FYI, not calling names, but just wanted to point out there was some people did see an incident where somebody had imbibed too much. We love them. We care about them. We think they're awesome. They've owned up, made a mistake, but per our norms, they won't be coming back for a year. And just want to make everybody aware. That's your leadership moment. It's not, it makes sure it's not about the other person. It's about showing the culture and having the hard conversations. They're usually rarely fun conversations, but they're so important. If you can get to where the daily grind doesn't have you doing a billion things and can really, really capitalize on those leadership moments, ooh, that's good stuff. That's culture. That's leading a culture. That's what that is. Important.
It's just, yeah, it's just because, right, you know, like just in on that, you're right, like, because you didn't mention the person's name. You're just like, this is, yeah, it's about the, right, you built a community and it's about the greater community. It's not about any individual in it. And that's right. You, like you were saying earlier, the difference between leadership and management.
Oh, absolutely. And note there was several things I said in there that were very key. I said the person made a mistake and learned from it. The fundamental thing about Wildfire is we all make mistakes. Welcome to picking up a prop and smacking yourself in the face with it or whatever. That's what we're here for. Make mistakes. Good. Because you rarely learn something inside your comfort bubble. When you're doing something you already know, you're not learning. You know, you're practicing maybe, but you're not learning. Like you got to make mistakes. So I specifically said, hey, everybody, there was a mistake. They owned it. They're learning from it. They've already said, but per our norms, this is the punishment for that. So people know this one because other people saw it. They might not be talking about it. They might be, but they saw it. And if it's not addressed, that can become in the culture. So you need to say, you don't have to, but you need to say something to reinforce the culture. But there's subtle other parts of the culture. You can take that opportunity because it comes along very rarely. You can take that opportunity and reinforce the culture you're trying to build. That's that's wizardry when you see someone who's really good at it. It's rare, but practice it. You know, try it if you can. It's good stuff. It's really good, important stuff.
Yeah, I think it's really important in the hard situations to make the right calls for like I very much agree that those are very strong leadership moments. I also think that on a more positive note, like sending the right message in a positive environment is also cru- not necessary but crucial. It's very 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 important. Like one of my earliest something that has stuck in my memory really hardcore is the founder of one of my previous companies. When me and my wife moved into our new place, can you get the door? When me and my wife moved into our new place, she got us a housewarming gift that had everything that I was wanting, but I had never told her about.
Ooh.
Yeah. She got us like a bartending kit and a sous vide, and I had never mentioned this to her, but she took the effort to like talk with other people who had talked to me about this stuff and find out more about myself to show that she cared about her employees. She like as a leader, like she is someone who is going to take care of her team, and she wants everyone to know that as deeply as possible.
Sure. And that's a very specific culture, and it's an awesome sounding culture. As people from the engineering school, know that teachers often take the opposite approach from that. If you don't show up at class, I don't give a shit, and you're going to fail. And different culture, and both. I mean, I love that they did that for you. I think it's great, but I think it's something that's so often missed. And I know we've talked about culture a ton on this. I didn't know we would today, but I love it. That pick the culture. Be very, the way we were talking about earlier, of like, be conscious of your decision. This is the culture we're trying to build a team around people that care about each other and like know each other, and you're supported. That is awesome. That is a great, and that will attract a certain type of person. It won't attract some others. Some others are not a good fit for that, and that's fine too. Not a problem. But reinforcing it with something like gifts that are that personal, that is a great way to build from day one. Like when you got to Wildfire, what was the first thing they did for you?
Well, I mean, it was the bacon cookies. You mean like after that? Sorry.
At the greeter tent, what did they say? Do you remember?
Oh, welcome home.
First thing they said to you.
Yeah. I still remember it, like after all this time.
10 years later. That is reinforcing a culture and picking something that makes that level of impact. 10 years later, you can still remember. Those kind of things, like you just said, you still remember that they got you that gift like that, and that specific type of culture. And that and those, man, that is how you reinforce a culture. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes back to, I mean, like a little behind the scenes here, like when we talked to you like last week about like what we talk on the interview, we don't always know what we're going to talk about, and we didn't know we were going to have a 2-hour conversation on the importance of culture.
I will say I've had multiple festival leaders that I've talked to and just been friends with that knew, sometimes not, that have asked me about like, what was the most important thing that you guys focused on that really made a difference. And I know absolutely no hesitation whatsoever. Having a clearly defined mission and putting a culture in place that has really clear levers and buttons that are reinforcing that culture that align with that mission. That is, everything else will fall in place. It really, really will.
Yeah, that's cool. So to wrap things up a bit, because we have been keeping you for quite a while now, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's been awesome.
I love it. But to wrap things up a bit, something it's so not necessarily recommend. So we usually end our talk with like, how would someone get started doing what you're doing? But as we've already talked about, like, the path of entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and nor should it be. It's very hard. So let's digging into like a different aspect. How would you recommend someone start their path of introspection if it's only just crossing their mind?
Oh my gracious, that's a huge question. Really? You're going to throw that out as a wrap-up question?
That's a wrap-up question. That's my favorite, new favorite.
Ooh, yeah, don't know. You got to prep people for that one. That's going forward. You can't roll that one out. Jeez. How you prep yourself for introspection? Oh my God. So I guess I'm just gonna say, I guess I'm old, and I view that everybody, is at different levels. And there's an old saying that you will only hear what you're ready to hear. Your mind will only allow you to see things inside yourself that you're ready to see. A lot of people that went through really rough stuff in their youth, usually, you build coping mechanisms, because what do? You're a kid, you don't have any great things. You build coping mechanisms, and those mechanisms get you through. And they do. You figure it out. Like, everybody's got a different one, although they tend to fall in categories, which is fascinating, but that's a different topic. Those coping mechanisms are vital for your childhood, and they become detrimental for your adulthood. Learning, there's a concept called narratives, and it's so cool that we all repeat the stories that we've repeated our whole life. So if you like you had a very loving mother or an over, I don't know, abusive parent, let's say, you will seek out not necessarily abuse, but the way you learned what love is imprinted on you. So not someone that's necessarily supportive, you'll find that uncomfortable. It won't seem, you won't believe it. Not, and you may want to, but that's ingrained in you. And people will repeat these stories. And what's really fascinating is you may bring in somebody to your story and they're not like the character that you're putting in the place of it, but you'll start treating them that way, like the story wants. And within a certain amount of time, they'll actually start doing the behaviors that are the character in that story. And these narratives we repeat over and over and over again. And it's, once you really get into this and you start watching people and stuff and think about the stuff, and especially your close friends, you're like, holy shit. And then you look at yourself, like, holy shit, I've been doing this. And it's different every time. And what the trap of narratives is that you try to fix the story. Okay, I'll repeat the story, but I'll do this different this time. Or I'll tweak it here and I'll put somebody else here. I'll do this. The problem with it is the story's broken. The whole story's broken. It will always end probably badly. It'll always end badly. Let's just start there. It'll end badly until you stop repeating the story. It's a big mindfulness training of putting little flags in place of like, hey, I'm really attracted to this person. Awesome. Or I want this job. Awesome. And wait a second, I'm suddenly, let's try to use a self thing. I'm suddenly questioning a lot of my stuff, or I'm anxious going into these meetings, or something like, ooh, red flag. It might be nothing, but I've trained myself that when I start to do a certain activity, it's a red flag to go, ooh, wait. Am I repeating the narrative? Am I doing that thing again without realizing it? When you can start really looking at your narratives, and some parts of them are positive, but then consciously choosing not to, and really you just got to stop. You may want to try to fix it. And in my experience, speaking from my experience, don't. You can't fix it. It's a broken story, and it never ends well. And it just, every time you repeat it, actually hurts worse. The scars that we don't die from make us stronger. Total bullshit. That is a lie. Never let them tell you that. You carry those scars for the rest of your life. And that's the truth. You got to learn these narratives, learn yourself and how you're doing that, construct something that's more positive, and then just, you got to manage your shit. Like, you got to be able to come to somebody and say, hey, just so you know, my two triggers are feeling not good enough, because that's going through my head all the time, and abandonment. If I'm really afraid that you're going to leave me, I will freak out, and it'll be bad. Like it really gets to me. I will tell you as it's happening. I will tell you beforehand. I know what helps. Every so often, I just need you to tell me that I'm important to you. And I may come to you and be able to say that. And I need a job. You can say it in different ways. Of course, I'm using relationships here, but you can go to a job and say, hey guys, I'm willing to work 80 hours a week. I will crush your hardest project. You will be blown away. And I don't need a break afterwards. I'm really weird like that, but I need the people that are respecting this company to appreciate what I'm doing and say it, and say that I'm important here. You don't even have to give me a damn raise. That's what I need, that as how I function. And that's because of my narrative and my story that I've built up over many, 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 many years. So long story to answer your question, to start the path to introspection, oh man, take trips, go to other countries, get outside your comfort zone, do something you've always wanted to do. Don't just get outside your comfort zone like, I'm gonna go skydiving. Well, if you're terrified of skydiving and you never fucking wanted to do it, don't do it. I mean, no, but do something you wanted to do, because that'll keep you motivated. And you need to be motivated to keep trying this stuff, and be okay making mistakes. Be okay. Like, you're gonna screw up. That's awesome. Don't get so okay with just, hey, I've got this job figured out, unless that's what makes you happy. So I'm not going to say what you should do, because you have to figure out what is it that's going to make you happy. You get one trip on this crazy merry-go-round. You got to figure out, like, in 5 years, ask yourself the question, go on a friggin' dream journey. And yeah, it may involve drugs. It may not. I don't care. Go travel by yourself. You want something that really pushes you? Take a trip to New Orleans by yourself for a week. Like, just do it. And the time you spend, like, outside of your norms, and you can really look at your life in ways, and you go, well, and then take focused time. Go to Burning Man. Take focused time to say, okay, 10 years from now, what is it that, loosely, you may never get there, but at least take the time. Like, what is it that if I've accomplished or I'm at, that I think right now will make me happy and healthy? And then start kind of working towards that. Now, you know, every night in your exercise, did it bring me closer to happy? Did it bring me closer to healthy? And you know what to kind of balance it against. And then don't be afraid to, like, agile approach to your life, not just programming. Like, learn as you go. And 3 months in, you're like, holy shit, this is not making me happy at all. And I'm actually getting stomach ulcers. That's not healthy. Change direction. Nothing wrong with that. But if you don't get out there and try, if you don't get out there and push yourself, learn about yourself, ask your friends, maybe if things are rough, go to therapy, man. Having a professional who's truly trained to look at the things you're doing and has no investment in your life whatsoever, and that's key. No one realizes that until they go. Like, they don't know your friends. They're not trying to make you happy. They don't give a shit. They're going to actually, they're there to analyze these type patterns and stuff like that and help you out. Like, why do we have a stigma against this? We go to a doctor if we break our leg. You know, if you're having a weird pain somewhere, you go see somebody. Why don't we do that with other stuff that's, like, actually stopping us from being happy and healthy? It's crazy, but that's our society. So that's my big, huge answer. I hope it helped.
You acted like I had a hard question. You knocked that shit out of the park. Honestly, some of what you said, I'm gonna take away after this and be like, damn, I need to think on this. Because yeah, that was really sudden deep. Yeah. No, I love
it. Made me like listening to what you were saying, like, especially with the narratives and thinking about my life. And there's a couple narratives I've just broken. It's made me really appreciate my relationships right now.
Yeah. Congratulations. So, congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah, that is really awesome. And I mean, the thing the hard part is, like, people, it's going to come and go.
Yeah.
Like, there's an awesome movie called Leaving Rangoon. If you ever get a chance, it was like this B movie. No one watched it, whatever. There's this unbelievably good scene halfway through. The American lady who's going through hard stuff is like breaking down, and this professor who's, like, some of their students just died in this uprising and all this stuff, and she's just crying, and the guy comes out there with an umbrella and holds it over her, and he's just being drenched in rain, and she's like, I'm so sorry, like, you're going through all this stuff, and all I can think about is what's happened to me and this, that, and the other. And he just looks at her and he's like, that's the difference between East and West. You guys expect happipiness and are really upset when you don't get it all the time. We know that happiness is fleeting. So when we find it, we celebrate it, and we really appreciate it. And I was just like, oh, that's good. Yeah. That's real good. Happiness is fleeting. It's not here all the time. Like, and when we have it, like, appreciate it, like, enjoy it. And when it's not here, don't like, oh, my life's terrible, it's ruined. It's like, you're going to go through bad stuff. And when your friends are not in a good place in their journey, sometimes just saying, hey, I hear you're not in a good place in your journey right now, and I'm really sorry that right now is a rough time. But keep in mind, you know, it does get better. The journey, you know, sometimes it's hard to see, but there's low spots and there's high spots. And if you just want to talk, I'm here to listen. You know, I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you just want to share, I'm just here to listen, and happy for it. Like, a little different, but it's the way I try to approach it.
And one thing I want to say about therapists is you might not get lucky your first time.
Yes.
It takes, like,
Yes.
My current therapist, I have gone through like 12 different therapists before I found her. And
Awesome.
it's gonna suck. And the only way, and sometimes you have to be like, this person isn't a good match for me. And sometimes you have to be honest with yourself. And is it like, am I resisting getting better? Or is there actually something with this style that just isn't working for me?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just very much say, even if you don't think it works the first time around, it's really worth continuing to try. And like, it doesn't work the first time every time.
Amen. I absolutely. You may not be ready for it. They might not be a good mix. They may suck. Like there's not good therapists out there. There's some great ones out there. But yeah, like I'm so thankful that you said that. Like that is so important. I actually went in and interviewed my therapist. Like I walked in and he looked at me like, what the hell? I was like, nope, we're here, man. You get 3 sessions. 3 sessions. If I don't see progress, I'm out. I don't think he ever saw anybody do that before. And by like session 2, I'm like, oh, I'm in this. Oh, Jesus, he's good. He's really good. Like, so it ain't changed my life. Like it really was. I was in a very dark place. And yeah, it really, and it was like you said, it was a good fit. Like it would not have worked for a lot of people. It really wouldn't have, the way his style and everything he did, but it worked great with me. So please, if folks are out there, like, don't think that one therapist is the answer necessarily. Like definitely treat it like anything else. Like if you go to a sports medicine person or anything, like maybe what they're doing just isn't the right fit for you. I'm glad you said that. I'm really thankful you said that.
I given my experience, my mom's experience, given a wide variety of experiences I've heard, I think it's really important to stress so that you go in with the right expectations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, on that chipper note, thank you very much. No, this has been like really enlightening, and I've really loved hearing your story and like getting to know you. I like Tyler, you've already known him, but like it's been great getting to know you myself, and I have loved hearing your story, Chad. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, this has been great. I hope somebody finds it useful. Like
I found it useful at a minimum. So there's definitely at least a sample size of 1.
At least one person likes
great.
this podcast, and it might just be one person.
I will
It's just just thanks.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and have a great rest of your night.
Sure. Hey, you guys too. And let's touch base at some point. I'd love, hey, seriously though, send me a note if you want some contacts over at NASA.
And then if you want makerspace, I know a ton of random, and I have connections. So if you need me to like reach out for, I'm more than happy to do that.
If you know anybody, I was just like, we just applied to a grant. So if you know anybody on the grant board, but I'm like, no, don't ask that. That's wrong. But no, we'll see. But yeah, thanks guys. And again, this has been fun. I don't often share a lot. Not that I don't want to. It's just I find my own story boring, and I'd rather hear about others. So I hope somebody found this interesting.
I did. Yeah,
I did too.
I miss seeing you. I haven't been like hadn't gone to Wildfire in grad school, so it's just
next weekend here in Salem at the Salem Willows, we're doing a spin jam at a little artist festival that's happening there. So, and we're giving away free props. They sponsored us to buy some props, and we're making Dark Monk's making a bunch of extra free props. And if anybody shows up that wants to learn to spin and never spin before, we're just gonna have some props to give away.
So actually,
the 11th.
I knew how to do like whip long ago.
Ooh.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, people do whip.
Oh shit!
Yeah, there's fire whips.
Fuck, man.
Yeah,
you want
I make them.
Yeah, I'll go. Dan will go. Yeah, okay. I don't know if you remember. Like I was always with Dan Gonzalez all the time. He's back in town now.
I'll bring Dan.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh yeah. Send us the info.
3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, September 11th. And yeah, it'll be on the Dark Monk Facebook page.
Okay, cool.
And And yeah, I'll put it on my own Facebook page. But yeah, it's September 11th, 3 to 5. I'm not sure that's right. At Salem Willows. And it's a beautiful park. The Salem Willows is so pretty. And it's a whole little local artist festival. So if you're into like checking out a lot of the local artists,
That's cool.
come on by.
Yeah. Awesome.
The only way I won't be there is my parents are in town, and if we end up in Maine. But like, otherwise, I will be there.
Oh, no, bring your parents.
Salem is on the way to Maine.
That's
sort of,
true.
maybe.
Yeah.
So stop in. Yeah, it'd be great.
I definitely want to go. So
Yeah, let's do that.
Should be fun. It should be fun.
Yeah.
I've got a friend from out of town coming in, so it'll be really
cool.
nice. And seriously, the Willows is so beautiful. Like if you haven't been there before, it's kind of more of a locals thing. It's not as touristy, but it's got like water all around it, and beautiful trees. It's really in a little arcade. It's so cool. So
yeah, cool. Well, on that note, see you this weekend.
See this week? Oh, that'd be great. No, next week.
Is this
September 11th.
No, it's the following weekend, right? Because this day's Thursday.
Then yeah. Then
So
see you the following weekend.
2 weeks from now. Not Labor Day, weekend after.
Awesome. Cool.
See you later. Have a great night, guys.
You too, Chad. Well, that was a heavy episode, but I loved it. If you did too, we'd really appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe.
Or give us a free meal.
Or maybe some balloons.
Yeah, hopefully that'll lighten things up.